Hi, I'm Doug King with Presence. It's my pleasure to be here today with Rory McEntee. Rory is co-author, along with Adam Bucko, of a manifesto that's entitled The New Monasticism. Rory, I really appreciate you taking a minute with me today.
Thank you, thank you.
And for our audience, could you start out by giving us a little bit of an overview of what led to the writing of New Monasticism and what you were introducing, if you will, as something that's arising and becoming kind of a movement, if you will?
Sure. So New Monasticism came out of, first and foremost, I guess, my own journey, but really the parts of that journey that I found resonant with others that I've met along the way. And so I met Adam 2 or 3 years ago at a meeting of the Contemplative Alliance, and we connected on the final day, and I gave him a ride to the airport. And as we began to share with each other, what we found was that there were many parts of our journeys that were very resonant and had a lot of overlap. And the journeys were a bit unique in that they had consisted of having mentors from many different traditions, religious traditions. I was closely mentored by Brother Wayne Teasdale, who was a Catholic monk and also initiated as a sannyasi, or a wandering ascetic in the Hindu tradition, by Bede Griffiths, as well as some Tibetan Buddhists and a Hindu Advaitic teacher. Adam had not only worked with homeless kids, but also been mentored by a Jewish rabbi and a Hindu teacher and some Sufi teachers and some Catholic priests as well. And what we found was, as we shared, that there were elements of our journeys that we really resonated with each other with. A sense of being guided by the Holy Spirit, a sense of real commitment and discipline to the transformative journey, and a sense of this kind of free movement and what we wanted to give in our lives and the work we wanted to do in our lives to arise out of that contemplative life that we were living. And so we began to realize that it wasn't just a unique journey that we were undergoing, but there were elements, not only in our conversations, but with others that we had, where people seemed to be feeling this real calling to dedicate themselves to a spiritual life, but to do it in a way that was really unique with them, but in a mature way, in a way that could really take part of the wisdom of our traditions. And so we thought to try and articulate that, with the hope that by naming it and kind of making it concrete, others who were feeling this in their lives could really recognize it and embrace it as a vocation, as a way of life, and then that we could help to build some community and some structure around that to help people live a deeply contemplative life. And maybe just to say a little bit about New Monasticism.
Yes.
In these words. The monastic part really comes in to represent this kind of complete commitment to the spiritual journey or a transformative path. So traditionally monastics, gave up their lives, even underwent celibate lives to give themselves to this journey. And so we wanted to really capture kind of that kind of mature and deep commitment to the journey. But the new part is that many of us who are feeling that need to commit to a path don't necessarily feel called to be in a monastery or to be priests, but to be very much living in the world and having relationships and jobs and all the normal human issues and problems that come with living in a city and trying to make a living and dating, and raising a family, or however that comes about, but without the cultural overlays of how we should live our lives. Our lives are really coming out of that.
Yeah, and you know, I found
contemporary
that to be
style.
extremely exciting as I read it and I looked at the way you were using materials and teachings, not so that you could identify with the teacher or the teaching, but that you could identify with what it was that the teacher or teaching was pointing to, which is to say universal spiritual principles. And even within that, one of the things that I thought about was the idea of the communities that I've come from and some of my concerns when I was younger about what was of the truth or not of the truth and some of my thinking in younger days. And I would have looked at something like this and I would have said, oh, that's just New Age. But how would you differentiate this idea of something that's New Age, or perhaps, I think you, as you outline in the book, something that is not what you're considering now disciplined, mature, but maybe something that's more feel-good? Is that kind of along the lines of something that would be a concern that it did not come off that way?
That's a very good question. I think I want to choose my words carefully here, but I mean, without saying maybe too much about the New Age and New Age past, which I think, you know, for a lot of people, they find them exciting and find them a kind of breath of fresh air if they're not drawn to a particular tradition, and gives them a certain freedom and way of being that they haven't experienced, while also speaking to a yearning that they have for a spiritual life. The difference, I think, particularly in Adam and I's journey, is the mentors that we have had have almost all come from traditions, wisdom traditions and mystical paths. Brother Wayne had a long lineage. Father Thomas Keating has been a mentor to us. My Advaitic Hindu teacher was very immersed in the Hindu tradition. Of course, my Tibetan Buddhist roots were from Dharamsala and Tibetans from the East, and there's a long, long history there. And one thing that the wisdom traditions that have grown up can offer that sometimes New Age paths will have a much harder time with is that these have been cultivated over thousands of years. And that the spiritual journey is very long, and it's full of pitfalls, and it's full of ways of getting lost. And to navigate that successfully has taken a lot of thought and a lot of energy and a lot of the best the human race had to offer in passing down wisdom and frameworks and structures that help people to do that. So I think for us, having mentors that have come through those traditions really helped to safeguard. I know me personally, in a lot of ways I could have become stuck.
Or manipulated, perhaps. In other words, when we look at the evolution of thought and we realize that it's thousands of years old, and we can see a commonality among the various teachers and teachings that have come through time, what you're saying is that we are not, and you are not, in new monasticism, ignoring your past, but rather building upon it, and that you see this as a growth process, which just simply means new monasticism is a time that's come for that next step forward, but it's built on a grounding that exists from thousands of years back.
Yeah, I think it grows out of a collaboration and a partnership with the wisdom traditions. It's not meant to replace them necessarily, but it is a phenomenon of being able to take part in those different wisdom traditions without giving yourself over fully to one. What exactly? I think it's a phenomenon, a part of globalization and the coming together of all these traditions, and it also may be something new that's emerging. A new kind of consciousness, a new emergence. Traditions have grown out of that energy in the past, and I think it's a genuine calling and movement of the spirit that has kept us from being in a particular tradition.